Welcome to the Heavy Debriefings podcast.
We are Josh Runquist and the Metal Faerie,
A fun-loving metal couple that brings you the best in new music.
What did you just make me listen to? As well as movies.
3 hours later, nothing of value was added. TV.
It's going good, so why not cancel it? Video games.
Here's an idea. Remake the game, but make it worse. Wrestling.
Why are we still watching this week after week? And all things entertainment.
I knew it. I knew she was behind Black Guy Gates. And a little insight into our personal lives. You don't mind that I trauma dump on you, do you?
Emotional support girlfriend, party one. He's a handsome fella.
I know, you keep telling me. We're made for each other, because no one else would have us. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, this is Josh Ronquist here for episode 42 of the Heavy Debriefings podcast, which we are entitling The Clown Show Has Been Retooled. And that little laughter right there is, of course, the voice of
The Metal Faerie.
How are you doing right now?
Oh, I'm pretty okay. The episode number is also my age, so hey, that lines up.
I thought you didn't want people to know that.
Oh, I don't care if people know how old I am.
You were avoiding it for a long time. Remember your birthday show? We did the Metal Faerie's number redacted show.
You did that on your own. I didn't care.
Okay, well, there you go.
Loud and proud.
Yeah, so for anyone curious, there is 7 years apart between the Metal Faerie and I.
Right around.
I will be 36 pretty soon, and yeah. It's scary to me, but of course the Metal Faerie has already been through it, so she does not have any empathy whatsoever.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Now, you're probably wondering why we're naming this Simpsons reference for the episode. The Clown Show Has Been Retooled.
Yes.
Well, it's because we retooled the show after having a good long discussion about what we wanted this show to be.
Yeah.
So why don't you take this part and describe what we're doing now?
Yeah, we just wanted to flow a little bit better, and there are some sections that just aren't as we don't have as much to say sometimes, So we're kind of retooling it a little bit. So basically how it's going to run is every week we're going to start off with a weekly recap, which will include, of course, some news because we got to have the news. We'll also cover anything that we've kind of been into, our interests and such over the past week as well. Then we'll jump into accountability 101 and see whatever music that is, or maybe I'll change in the future. Maybe we'll do something other than music. Who knows? Stay tuned.
Well, I do want this to stay a music-centric show, so
yeah.
Instead of just talking about new music all the time like we do at the end of the show, I do like having a part where we talk about some relatively older music as well.
Oh,
so
for sure.
I do like having this, and you actually discovering music.
Yeah, but who knows? We could add more onto it or something else. Who knows? And then we'll have our topic of the week, which will change every week. And then finally, we're going to end with a music section, which of course will include OT&WIM, but then it'll also include any other new music we've checked out, singles and such.
Yeah, and that latter part will come out first. So we'll talk about the brand new singles and stuff like that, and we'll add things on OT&WIM.
Yes.
Out today and what I missed. So yeah, that's kind of what to expect here. I think it'll just make things a little bit more smooth going forward.
I agree.
I think we'll just have more to say rather than like, I like that, or I don't like that. We want this to be more interesting for you to be able to check out.
Exactly.
You checking this out, I want you to stick around for the whole thing. So if this can help, I hope so. And if it does, please let us know if we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
That would help out tremendously.
Absolutely.
Now, with all of that said, we do not have a new ID yet for the first section of the show, which is going to be the news and what we've been doing over the past week. We'll get to that eventually.
Exactly.
And also, I gotta say, there are some ones that I'm really, really sad that we have to scrap now because I put some time into those and I really, really enjoy them.
I know. You did a good job with those intros.
Especially the Metal Faerie's reality review.
I know.
That was the one I was the most proud of and I put the most work into.
It is hilarious.
And it's gone now. So
it's hilarious.
Maybe it can come back once in a while.
Who knows? We'll see.
We'll see. But, well, how are we starting this? We doing the news first? We talking about our lives first? What's going on
We'll
here?
start with some news. So, sometime this week, I can't remember what day it was, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees were announced, including...
Now, did you get all of them or just the original ones? Because apparently there was another batch that got announced.
I have 8, so I don't know how many there were. I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame page, so...
Okay. Well, there you go.
So Mary J. Blige.
We're going to go over this one by one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they finally face down flipped it and reversed it so she can be a part of this.
That is true.
Well, first of all, we got to say this when it comes to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Absolutely meaningless.
Absolutely. I don't care about it at all.
Yeah, like, I don't care who gets inducted and who doesn't get inducted. We're just looking at this from the focal point of, it's just like, does it make sense? Are they worthy enough to be in something like this? Just something like that. I mean, we have no vested interest in this whatsoever.
Yeah.
I don't like award shows, and every single year the Big Bopper gets excluded, so I have no reason to care.
And also, we talked about this a little bit on the last episode, or 2 episodes ago, I think it was. I can't remember. How it really shouldn't even be called Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because what is rock and roll anymore, first of all? And clearly some of these people are not rock artists, so...
Including Mary J. Blige.
Exactly.
I'm not knocking her for what she's done, but she's not a rock and roll one.
It should just be Music Hall of Fame or something like
so,
that.
I mean, to me, the way that I'm looking at everyone that's talked about here, it is just subjectively the Music Hall of Fame. And whether they're big enough to be considered to be a part of something like that. Get it, got it, good. Mary J. Blige, she had enough hits to make it in there. So, all right, sure.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely. Like, I never got super into her, but I mean, I know she's had quite an impact. So, yeah, I would agree.
All right.
Up next, Cher.
I'm amazed she wasn't in it already.
Me too, honestly. I thought she would have been.
Yeah, like, think about this. Like, your debut album has to come out 25 years to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Your debut album has to be at least 25 years old.
Yeah.
There are grandparents that came out since Cher has been putting out music.
It's true.
And she's not in there?
I mean, when was her first, like, 60s? I mean, right?
Yeah, 60s.
I mean, you compare that to like Mary J. Blige, and I mean, again, not like downing her at all, but like, I think she originated in the 90s. I don't think it was the 80s.
Although, is Sonny and Cher in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Oh, that's a good question.
She could be going in as a solo artist.
That could be.
I have not looked into it because that's how little I care, but
exactly.
Even her solo career, like, that was in the 70s, and I'm amazed that wasn't bigger at some point. And it took, like, Santa on the Dance Floor, or whatever that song was that we heard during the Macy's Day Parade.
Oh, I forgot about
Santa's
that.
a DJ or something like that. And
something like that.
It took that song to come out, and then it's like, you know what? She deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes, that was the tick right there.
But yeah, I mean, considering this is the Music Hall of Fame, I'm amazed she hasn't been in there already.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, she's really somebody who's kind of reinvented herself every decade and had some kind of new wave of music that came out. Definitely has some catchy songs. So yeah, she should definitely be in there.
My mom loved the Believe album so much.
Of course she did.
I've told you this many a times off air, but I've never mentioned it on air. When my mom mentally snapped in 2000, and, well, check out the Something Gives series if you want to get deeper into that.
Yeah.
This is a lighthearted thing. Whenever there was a yard sale or a garage sale or a used store, and my mom found a CD or cassette copy of Cher's Believe, she would buy it.
You can never have too many copies.
Despite the fact that she already had it, something in her just made her keep buying that over and over again.
She wanted to support Cher.
But why not the other albums? What was it about Believe?
It made her believe.
That is one way to put it.
That is one way to put it. Up next, we got the Dave Matthews Band.
I hate the Dave Matthews Band.
Girl, me
and
too.
That is one subject I would love to cover, because one thing that I try to do with Heavy Debriefings is I don't like talking about the music I don't like.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like putting that hate out there into the world, because there's enough metal reviews and angry pages and stuff like that that already do that for me. So why do you need to hear my opinion on why I don't like something? I'd rather spread the positive stuff.
Yeah.
But I would love to do a segment, like a theme for the show one week, where I actually go over the bands that I despise.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
And Dave Matthews is one of them. I hate his voice.
Where would you say?
I have nothing against the backing band because apparently,
I do.
mean, they're all very, very talented musicians. And when I was growing up reading drum magazines, I mean, Carter Bruford was always talked about, and he has amazing chops as a drummer. But it's the Dave Matthews Band. It's the white guy jam bands that didn't want to be hippies. They wanted to be hipsters.
Yeah.
It's a hipster 90s jam band. And that is just not for me, and it never will be.
Yeah.
Crash is a creepy song. It is when you read the lyrics, it is a creepy, creepy song.
I've never read the lyrics for that.
Yeah, and just his voice doing it. And also, he has the audacity to release a solo album called Dave Matthews when he already has a band named after him. But I digress, and I think you might even hate them more than I do.
Yeah, they just disgust me. I can't stand his voice. I can't stand the sound of the music. I hate them. They give me douche chills.
Is that why you hate the saxophone so much?
It doesn't help.
Dur, dur, dur.
Oh, I hate that.
Dur, dur.
I hate that. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. So I'm going to go with no. They don't deserve to be in there.
Again, Music Hall of Fame, I think they've influenced enough bands and musicians and stuff, sure.
Right.
But I hate them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really do want to do that show one time because there's usually I hate musicians for what they
Yeah.
stand for.
Yeah.
But I've never really talked about the bands that I hate musically.
It's true.
And I think that would be a fun one to do. I think that would get
I
people
agree.
to tune in.
I agree.
All right, so what do we got next?
Up next, we have Foreigner.
Yeah, I'm amazed they haven't been in sooner.
Absolutely.
It's weird that it took their farewell tour for them to
Yeah.
finally get in there, but all right, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Foreigner should have been in there a long time ago.
Yeah, there's so of the 70s era rock and roll and 80s too, of course. There's some after that too, but bands and stuff. Growing up, I didn't mind quite a bit of it. I listened to a lot of it, but you get to a point where you just hear it so much you just get sick of it. But Foreigner is one of the bands that's kind of stuck with me. That I mean, there's a lot I don't listen to with them, but there's a few select songs that I can always go back to with them and I can enjoy it. So absolutely, they should be in there.
Yeah, and Overplayed.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, and I can't be the only one in the world. That's how I feel about every single song off of Appetite for Destruction, except Rocket Queen.
Oh, I love Rocket Queen.
Every other song can F off. I am so sick of hearing every other song off of that album.
Oh, yeah.
But Rocket Queen, I still enjoy.
Yes.
That'd be another good one too, bands or songs that you can't listen to anymore because of how much it was overplayed.
Yeah, I agree. We'll have to make a list after this show.
See, this is what we're doing. We're bantering a little bit more, so it's just
trying to anyways.
you're able to enjoy it a little bit more instead of just yeah, okay.
More. Okay, up next, Peter Frampton.
Another one I thought was already in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm a fan, although I do love the episode. I do love Homer Palooza when Peter Frampton's on the Lollapalooza or Hullapalooza. Sorry, that's the Simpsons version. I do love the Peter Frampton stuff on there. That's another good one where it's you heard the singles so many times that you really don't need to hear them anymore.
I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't name a single from him if I had to.
Want you show me the way.
Ugh.
That's his biggest one.
Okay, yeah. I learned something new today.
Do you feel like I do?
I don't recognize that.
If you heard it, you probably would.
Okay.
But yeah, that's Peter Frampton.
Okay.
And according to one Howard Stern moment that I just remembered when he had some rock star groupie on there talking about her autobiography, Peter Frampton was the smallest of everybody that she was ever with.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, that's not something you really want to be remembered for. No. And that's also why if I ever make it, I will never be with a groupie. Hey-oh.
Moving onward. Up next, we got Kool and the Gang.
Yeah, another one that feels like they should have been in there already, considering it's more of a music hall of fame.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, whenever someone evil dies, I always play Celebration.
That is true.
But no, I mean, for R&B, funk, all of that stuff, they should have been in there a long time ago if we're considering everything.
Yeah, I completely agree. They're a fun band, I feel like,
Do you remember?
I remember.
23rd day of September?
Something like that.
I'm forgetting the line. I remember the September part, and I remember the part, but I forgot which day in September.
Exactly.
Yeah, they should have been in them a while ago.
Agreed. Up next, Mr. Ozzy Osbourne.
Everyone's complaining that he hasn't been in there before. before, but he's in there with Black Sabbath. He's been in there since 96, so, calm down. He's been in there for almost 30 years. His solo stuff, yeah, I get it, and everyone just keeps complaining about how there's not enough hard rock and heavy metal in there.
Yeah.
You have to remember, in American music, which is basically what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is all about, when's the last time, Japanese musicians have made it in there for being huge in Japan? When was the last time that you heard anyone from Scotland be so huge that they made it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? There's people in there, but it's very, very small, which is my point with hard rock and heavy metal. There's not that many people listening to it in America, which is why they need to rename it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it all comes down to. People still see Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and they think that's what it's supposed to be, and you're not doing what you're putting it out there as it's supposed to be,
Yeah, and, several other people have made, Metal Hall of Fames, and all I can think is, why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, really.
If you really want to respect the bands, buy their albums, buy their merch, go and see them live.
It's true.
I mean, giving them, a $10 plaque that says they're in the Metal Hall of Fame, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I think about everything, his early 80s stuff is why he should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because of how much of an impact that had on a generation.
Yeah.
Not even saying that's the best Ozzy stuff, I'm saying that's what had the biggest impact. And of course, yours is No More Tears, which, 92.
What are you talking about?
Ozzy solo material. You prefer, the 90s Ozzy.
I wouldn't say that.
No More Tears, Mama, I'm Coming Home.
I mean, I like that, but I mean, No Rest for the Wicked was one of my first cassettes I bought, so.
Okay, well, I just know you gravitate towards that more than anything. Funny enough, all of the Zakk Wylde stuff is what you gravitate towards more than anything, and I know how much you love Zakk Wylde.
Yeah, I have really no, I mean, if I get down to it, I really have no opinion on Zakk Wylde. I know he's a guitar player. I don't know what he's been on, what he hasn't been on. But I mean,
if you hear those pitch harmonics that he does all the time, then you know it's him.
I don't pay attention enough for that.
All the squeals and the solos and the stuff.
Yeah, I do not pay attention enough for that. But no, as far as...
Remember this, folks. You get so upset about the little fine details that other people do not care about. All the online backlash about Zakk Wylde and his pitch harmonics and his squeals and everything. Right here, someone does not care.
I really don't.
And there's other people in the world who simply do not care. So, just let go of that animosity once in a while. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall point, Ozzy, yeah, sure. He's in there, good, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, yes, he was already in there with Black Sabbath. I don't care if he gets in there, but yeah, his solo stuff should definitely be...
None of this, we don't care about who gets in there.
I know, but what I'm saying is, his solo stuff that absolutely deserves to be in there, though. Yeah, I don't really gravitate towards a certain period, but I like a little bit from each, I would say. I mean, some of the 80s is definitely overplayed, obviously.
Early 80s.
Yeah, but like I said, No Rest for The Wicked was one of the first albums I ever had, so that one has a place in my heart, and I do love the 90s stuff too.
You're one of the only people who, if I remember this correctly, you're one of the only people I've ever talked to that enjoyed Osmosis.
I was just about to say that. You cut me off. I love Osmosis. I absolutely love it.
I've never heard that from another individual.
Old LA
in my
Tonight
life.
is one of the loveliest ballads ever. Perry Mason is a good one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone say that.
Yeah. And finally, we have a Tribe Called Quest.
If you're covering hip hop, you gotta have a Tribe Called Quest. So
yeah,
I think they deserve to be in there. And you gotta say the whole thing. A Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
Don't shorten it.
No.
Do you know any Tribe Called Quest songs?
Not that I can name off the top of my head. I mean, if I heard some, I might recognize them, but I don't know.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that wraps up the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So, as you can gather, we really don't care, but it's good discussion.
It is.
And I'm sure I've made a metal head or two very upset for everything that I've said. But
I'm sure.
What do you feel about it? Do you really care about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Why do you care? Let us know.
Yeah. So moving on, we have a little bit of wrestling news. First up, WWE made some cuts over the past week. Including Jinder Mahal.
Which I can't be surprised by.
Honestly, I can't either. I mean, he's been out for a long time.
He gets injured all the time. They tried pushing him really, really hard when WWE wanted to get into the Indian market.
Yep.
And it just fell flat.
It absolutely did.
Is it possible that he can find himself again in another company, kind of like what Drew McIntyre did?
Maybe?
Entirely possible, but I doubt it.
Yeah. Up next, we had Veer Mahan and Sangha, who were two that Jinder was managing, I believe.
Yeah, if you remember this from like a couple years ago, the WWE promos that kept saying Veer is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
So he came and went.
But he left his impression upon the world.
The other one I am not familiar with.
Yeah, I'm not either. Up next, Xia Li.
No, she was in NXT, and that's about it.
Yeah, I
Haven't watched NXT in years.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm not familiar with her either. I mean, I've heard the name many a times, but that's it.
Yeah.
Zion Quinn.
Another one from NXT that I do not know of.
I don't either.
Because it wasn't during our time.
Yeah. Von Wagner. Another one I don't know.
He's the one that broke Big E's neck.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and assume that's why he's cut.
Maybe he's unsafe, yeah. And then finally, Cameron Grimes.
Yeah, I just read this morning. Apparently, he gave an interview where he said that 5 days ago,
Yeah.
a higher up at WWE said that he's always gonna have a spot in WWE.
That's almost as bad when they packed up Mickey James's belongings in a trash bag and sent them to her.
And her husband's now working for WWE.
I know. Like, what a sellout.
I don't understand how any of this works.
Like, thanks, sweetie.
Maybe it's just not being thin-skinned, take any opportunity you get.
It could be.
Morally, I can't do that.
No.
So, are you disappointed or intrigued by any of these? Like, do you think any of them can make an impact in AEW or TNA or the indie circuits or New Japan?
I mean, I've heard good things about Xia Li, so I think she probably could. Outside of that, I don't know some of them, and I don't like some of them.
I know you don't like Jinder.
I don't. He always just annoyed me.
Which is amazing because I know you are attracted to people from India and that area of the map. So I'm surprised that Jinder doesn't do it for you.
He doesn't do it for me. Moving on to some other wrestling news. So we quit watching AEW, so we didn't see this live.
Yeah. For anyone that missed the last week's show, we officially cut the cable.
We did.
Yeah, we finally moved to 2015 now.
I know, right? Only a decade behind.
AEW was the only thing that was keeping us to cable because everything else that we watch is streamable on an app.
Yes.
AEW is not.
Not
unless
yet,
you do
anyways.
the VPN thing, and we know with your work how well VPNs work so very well all the time, and you have to pay for that every month, and security issues, but all the other stuff. But basically, unless we're so intrigued by an upcoming pay-per-view, or if AEW starts streaming on Max Live, we're done.
Yeah.
But we will still keep up with some of the content as well, including...
Yeah, so we saw a segment from this last Wednesday's episode where ZackParrish and Tony Khan, the CEO of AEW, were in the ring having some kind of...
Now, do you know the context of this at all?
I don't know what they were discussing, no.
It was about ZackParrish coming back after everything that's happened, and he was thanking Tony Khan for bringing him back, and he's so excited to be back in AEW after everything that's happened. And then...
He turned on him. He punched him in the stomach. Tony was on the ground, kneeling over in pain because, it was such a hard strike to him. Then, of course, the Young Bucks come out along with, what's his name?
Oh, come on.
No, I'm horrible.
Okada,
thank you.
Okada.
Thank you. They come out and the Young Bucks end up turning on Tony Khan as well and doing a Meltzer driver on him. So Tony's all injured, and then later on at the end of the episode, he's shown on TV in a neck brace, really trying to sell the whole thing.
Yeah, that was during the NFL draft, actually.
Oh, I heard he appeared at the end of the episode too, but maybe that was different.
Oh, you meant his dad. I meant about the neck brace.
Yeah.
He's still selling it. During the NFL draft last night
Yeah.
as we're recording this, he still had the neck brace on. And For anyone who doesn't watch wrestling, I can only imagine what they were thinking. What was going on.
That's ridiculous.
What do you think of this whole angle?
I mean, number one, I'm confused because Tony had one point early on in AEW days said that he would never put himself like in a storyline. Because if you look at WWE, obviously Vince McMahon, his entire family has been involved in a number of storylines throughout the years. But
also of a certain generation, that's the most memorable moment of WWF, WWE is like Vince versus Stone Cold. Or
oh, for sure. But Tony said he wasn't going to do that. But the times haven't changed.
Well, that was the point I was trying to get at. Maybe he's thinking like if he starts doing something like that maybe people will start tuning in more.
And that could be. It's just kind of silly.
Yeah. I think we dropped out at the right time.
I know. And Tony's just such a little weakling, he looks like.
Maybe that's why they had Jack Perry do it, because, you know, it's
he's
like
shorter.
People always accuse him of being like scrawny and everything, despite the fact he can actually do stuff.
That is true.
So what do you think of Jack Perry now with a full-on beard?
I guess I didn't really pay too much attention to that.
Usually you focus on that kind of stuff. I'm surprised.
Yeah, me.
Okay.
I mean, I was more into his dad anyway, so.
Fair enough. So, what have you been doing this past week?
Yeah, let's shift over to that. So I've still been playing Skyrim because that's my life. My current playthrough, I'm kind of like in my past playthroughs, I've always been like such a big hoarder, and I'm still hoarding this time, but I'm not keeping stuff. I'm trying to sell things as I go and see how rich I can actually get this round. But it's hard because like you run out of like merchants with money and stuff, and I'm trying to level up like my speech so I can get to the point where I can give my merchants extra money so that they can sell or buy more from me, and so that they can buy anything from me and stuff. But it's taking some time. Outside of that, I finished True Blood.
Again,
I've watched it many a times, and I was just reminded how much the finale of it really just annoyed me.
Weird.
But no, I hated that Bill died. Like, he could have gone
Whoa. Spoilers here.
Oh, girl, it's been like 10 years. If you haven't watched it by now, I'm sorry. But it just was stupid for him to die when he could have been saved. And like, Suki didn't even like get rid of her fairiness. She kept being a fairy, but somehow she was able to go on to a regular life and not have vampires after her anymore, even though she had fairy blood and every vampire would be after her. So it makes no sense.
Well, you also have to remember the last two seasons were
yeah. I mean, I didn't hate them completely, but they weren't as good as the previous.
Well, it's just like King of the Hill. You know, It's like the early seasons, the mid seasons, they're great, but there's an absolute drop off at one point that just like it's hard to go back to those episodes.
I don't think it's as extreme for True Blood, but I see what you're saying though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'll say that I watched Vanderpump Rules, so a lot of this.
Need to point out, sadly, again, the Metal Faeries reality review is now just its own little part here in catching up in the past week.
Exactly.
So if you miss that jingle as much as I do, I am sorry.
Maybe we'll put it up for you to hear somewhere else. But no, a lot of the same issues, but this week was really focused around Sheena a lot and her not trusting anybody to stay with her children, and her husband being constantly annoyed with her for doing that because he's not allowed to have a life because he's with the kid all the time. Her writing a new song in which she's ripping apart the bad Tom. And Tom having an issue with that because she's really just been profiting off of like him and Ariana's breakup this entire time, because she started a podcast over it, and now she wrote a song talking all about him. So he confronted her about that, but then she slammed back at him and said how she doesn't trust her husband anymore because he cheated on Ariana, which makes no sense at all. So that was this week's episode.
All I've learned from the Vanderpump Rules, besides all of them having punchable faces, is that it's like they're all the town bicycle. Everybody's had a ride.
Oh, 100%. Everybody's cheated with everybody at some point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Lisa's done her fair share that won't be on camera as well.
Maybe, who knows? And then finally I caught up on my Love Island game, mobile game. I'm finally back with my original BF Jin. But there's been a lot of drama because we played Snog, Marry, Pie, and a lot of boys picked me to marry me. And then there was also a clips episode where it shows clips from everybody's like excursions and what they've done behind the scenes, like that other people didn't see. But I was a good girl, so nothing bad shown about me.
You have the opportunity to not be a good girl.
Oh, I play different run-throughs. Like, my first one, I pick one guy and I'm loyal. Then I play through again and I do it different ways. And then now, just at the very end of the last episode, a new guy came in and he's kind of cute. So who knows if I'm going to stick with Jen or go to him.
Ooh.
But that's me. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so a majority of my time, outside of doing the album reviews and that kind of stuff, has been playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Lots of schlong.
Oh, yes, and of course the opposite equation as well, too, if you choose to go that round. Boobies a-bouncing and other things that will get us blocked on YouTube if I mention them.
We'll avoid that.
Yeah, but yeah, look at the schlongs. Like I talked about last week, once I figured out the learning curve of Baldur's Gate 3, I started to enjoy it so much more.
Yeah.
I was enjoying it, but I just constantly died all the time, but then everything started to click with how I did everything, and then everything started going to the right direction. I'm currently in Act 3 right now, which has been taking up the majority of the game. It makes it sound like it's just like the end game stuff, but
Yeah.
almost all of the side missions are there, and all the craziness starts to happen there. Pretty soon, I imagine I'm going to be done with this playthrough, but it's definitely one I'm going to be going back to and like trying to play as different characters and stuff. I also want to get a couple pair of 20-sided dice as well. It's funny, once you realize that you could play it one or two people, like your entire focus on how you treated everything that had to do with Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff, just like you made a complete 180 about all of it.
Well, it's like, I mean, we don't have friends. Let's put that out there.
It's true. It's true.
And just even if we did, like, getting together with a group of people to play something just sounds exhausting to me. But if it's just like me and you, that's another thing.
Yeah, and I think we could have a lot of fun with that at some point.
I will say though, like for the game you're playing, there are things that I find amusing with it. Like I love storylines and stuff like that, but it looks confusing.
Well, you have to be there from the beginning.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, when you're not paying attention to it the whole time, it can get very confusing.
Yeah,
it's not Final Fantasy confusing where nothing makes sense. But,
well, yeah.
I mean, if I explained it, it might go over your head, but you might start to understand what it's about.
I get you.
But yeah, I feel like I'm getting closer to the end, over 100 hours into it now, so
very nice.
It was well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, there is the new PS5 version and Xbox Series version of Fallout 4.
Yes.
Which I'm very, very excited to go back and check that out. I looked on my PlayStation accounts. I have over 500 hours into Fallout 4, and I'll be racking up more, and maybe with this new update and everything, might even hit that good old 1K. I might get more hours into Fallout than I do Enter, which would be insane.
We'll have to compare your hours with that to my hours in Skyrim.
Can you do that on the Switch?
Oh yeah, I chose the hours.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, for anyone that's not familiar with that, Fallout 4 just got a brand new patch for the current generation, so everything runs smoother, it looks better, they added some new stuff into it. It doesn't completely change the game or anything, but it hopefully shouldn't make the game crash every hour and a half.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. There's also a bug in the PlayStation version. If you only have the game through PlayStation Plus, like if you bought a PS5 when it first came out, you got 20 free games, and Fallout 4 was one of them.
Yeah.
You have to pay $20 right now to get this upgrade, but Bethesda says they're working on it to make it free.
Yeah.
Like it was some kind of bug or glitch, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I had a physical copy from all the way back in 2016, so just pop that in. No one's the wiser.
They should just give everybody a $20 credit if they have that version.
Well, that or refunds, I imagine is going to happen.
Hopefully.
But that's pretty much been what I've been up to outside of doing the album reviews and stuff, which we'll talk about at the end of the show.
Yeah.
So just like we talked about in the beginning of the show, we have made some changes, but some things are staying the same. And this one, I hope, continues on as far as we can go. So the Metal Faerie no longer has to be known as a liar in my eyes, where she finally checks out the bands and albums that she's told me that she's going to check out for well over a decade now, in a segment we like to call Accountability 101. Class is in session. It's time for Accountability 101, where the Metal Faerie is being held accountable and having her check out one band a week that she actually said she was gonna check out.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that. Ponder.
So we've covered a lot of different bands, genres on here. We've
We
had
have.
death metal, we've had experimental, we've had what you call hipster, even though you are so wrong about that.
Difference of
We've
opinion.
had prog, we've had many things on here, but now we're finally hitting like pure death metal. At least that's how this band started off. But by the end, they became a full-on progressive death metal band with some black metal vocals on it. Of course, I am talking about Chuck Schuldiner and the band Death. Their 1998 album, The Sound of Perseverance, the very first Death album I ever bought 100% because of Richard Christie being on the album. And I instantly fell in love. I love this album. It's not my favorite Death album, but it is one that I hold in very, very high regard. Then again, I hold all 7 albums in very, very high regard.
Yeah.
I know you were familiar with them. You never really checked them out on your own, but then you saw one picture of Chuck in his ever-flowing hair, and you became a lot more interested.
I mean, he was a looker and he had beautiful hair. I won't say I didn't check out Death on my own. Like I've definitely checked out songs here and there, but not like by album, you know.
Right. I mean, before you met me, you never did that. You
Not by
always
album,
went
no.
by song.
Yeah.
That's why we can't talk about albums on this show, because I want to talk about albums, but you can't. Like, that's another reason for this segment, is my way to be able to talk about actual albums.
I know.
Which
I know.
I don't want to just talk about songs.
Yeah.
You did this to me. But anyways, back to Death. Of course, anyone that's familiar with this is the lone album with Chuck Schuldiner on it. It ends with Judas Priest's Painkiller, which is one of the most controversial covers out there because of the way Chuck sings it. I'll let you be the judge of that. This was originally supposed to be a Control Denied album, and you can really tell that when you hear the Control Denied album, and you hear the music of Sound of Perseverance, because they are very, very similar in style. And would this album be more appreciated or more hated if it had the clean vocals of Control Denied? You know, that's something we'll never know. But I do love this album, and because of the Richard Christie influence, this is the album that I wanted you to check out first.
Yeah.
And everything going backwards from here gets less technical, less progressive, until you get to the first album, Scream Bloody Gore, which is just like pure, unadulterated death metal.
Yeah.
But, of course, you've had so much time this week to be able to check it out. We did this right before we started recording.
It's true.
So it's still fresh in your mind.
Yeah, it is.
Let's get into it. What did
Sure.
you think of The Sound of Perseverance?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll go a little song by song, but a lot of my notes are kind of the same for each song, so bear with me. So the first song, Scavenger of Humans, Human Sorrow.
That's not the name.
Scavenger of Human Sorrow. I was getting there. Very catchy, very intricate, but yeah, it was good.
And the album starts with Richard Christie doing an absolutely insane drum solo.
Yeah. The second song, Bite the Pain. I recognize this one. Very catchy. I really like the guitar in this one. Third one, Spirit Crusher. Recognize this one as well. Very I found this one to be like super catchy. The vocal line. The guitar was also really great. And I can definitely hear the Control Denied in the ending of this. This is one of my favorite songs from the album. Number 4, Story to Tell. Not bad. This is probably my least favorite from the album. Not bad though. Definitely still some catchy moments to it, but just not as good as the others. 5, Flesh and the Power It Holds. I know
Another great drum intro.
Yup, I know this one as well. Again, very catchy. This is another favorite from here. The 6 one's Voice of the Soul. Nice instrumental, more relaxing. Yeah, just kind of chill.
You can hear Zingve chops going on in this.
A little bit. Yeah, I
Like,
can see that.
He starts going crazy at the end of it.
Yeah. Number 7, To Forgive Is to Suffer. Really nice guitar parts in this one. This is another one of my favorites. Number 8, A Moment of Clarity. Again, I recognize this one. Very catchy. The drums I really liked on this one. And finally, Painkiller. Again, catchy. Catchy cover.
What do you think of this version of it, though, compared to the original? Because there are some distinct differences.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. It's a different interpretation. I like it, yeah.
Okay.
Overall, I would say, I mean, obviously, it's a very catchy album. Great guitar and drums throughout. Definitely can see the Control Denied in certain parts, and then there's straight up death metal in some parts too. I feel like, I mean, as far as the Control Denied thing you were talking about earlier, like if it was clean vocals over it, I probably would like it a lot more than
I figured as much. I know you like Control Denied more than Death.
I would. I do, yes. I guess I would say, like, if I enjoyed straight up death metal more, before, this is the band I would listen to for sure. But I'm not, I mean, and I know this isn't straight up death metal. I mean, it's more progressive and stuff like that, but still fitting more into that death metal than like a lot of the melodic death I listen to. It's not as up my normal alley lately, but yeah, again, if I were to listen to something that's more straight up death metal, this would be it.
Well, I was gonna say, like, half of their discography is more straight up death metal.
Yeah.
Then it starts getting proggier and proggier, and then,
Yeah.
then you get to the Sound Perseverance, which is, bat poopy insane
Yes.
at moments. So if you like the more melodic moments, that happens on more albums like Symbolic, the album that came before it with Gene Hoglan on there. So
Yeah.
you got that on there. Of course, he's played on other albums as well, but then
Yeah.
it slowly starts to go back, becomes more and more primal every single.
Yeah.
But no, I'm glad. Would you go back to it?
I don't know if I go back to it as a whole, but definitely songs still. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Remember, this is not an album girl whatsoever.
No.
Which is kind of the bane of my existence when I want to talk about music and
I
I want
know.
to talk about albums. Like, I have no one to do that with. So, I can only go by songs. Well, anyways, what do you think of death? What do you think of the Sound of Perseverance in particular? I'm very curious. Like, are you a prog person like myself, and that was the first album you ever checked out and you enjoy it? Are you like a straight up, death metal fan and you hate the Sound of Perseverance because of what the band became? I'm so very curious, and please let us know down below. But what else is going on down below? Well, we're going to be talking about next week's band and album as I am shuffling the Spin the Choice wheel.
Alrighty.
We got 12 bands here, more or less the stuff that you would be enjoying here.
Okay.
So we'll see what's going on here since you can't press the wheel anymore.
Exactly.
I will do it.
Sounds good.
And it is spinning round and round and round she goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. And oh!
All right.
Okay.
This is a shift.
Going from progressive death metal into North American folk metal here.
All right.
With the Kentucky-born but now Minnesota-owned Panopticon.
Yes.
You've told me before this is a mood band for you.
Yeah.
Like, there are moments that you would enjoy.
Yeah.
But you have to be in the mood for it. So
Yes.
let's see if that happens this week. I am really torn on this one because there's two albums that I would want you to check out. And I think just to make everything easier on everybody, I'm going to have you check out the latest album, the Rime of Memory.
Okay.
It has the best production.
Okay.
It's about Minnesota,
All right.
especially stuff in the Eli area.
Okay.
Particularly a few years ago when they had that gigantic forest fire that happened up there.
Yeah.
Fox 9 News is used as a sound clip.
Well, there we go.
People do regard this as the best Panopticon album to date, and I may have to agree.
Okay.
Although my favorite songs might be on a different album, I do feel like this is the best overall interpretation of what Panopticon is nowadays. So,
Well, I'm curious to hear it then.
yeah, I'm very curious for you to sit down and listen to this one as well. So,
Yeah.
there you go, folks. Next week, and in case you want to play along as well, we're going to be checking out Panopticon and the Rime of Memory.
So up next in our topic of the week, we're going to have some wrestling talk. If you've listened to previous episodes, you know we've had some ups and downs with wrestling over the years. And we want to get a little bit more into that. We're going to talk a little bit about our personal histories with wrestling, where we've kind of gone with it over the past 10-ish years, and maybe a little bit about the future too. So let's dive into how wrestling has changed over the years.
Yeah, and when we do this, we're talking about 2017 to 2020, because that's when we got into it for our own personal experiences, but we also grew up watching it separately as well.
Yes. So we'll get into our histories like early before that too.
Okay.
I was thinking we could start with our personal histories of wrestling, growing up and whatnot, and then we'll get more into how things have changed and stuff.
Okay.
So what is your personal history with wrestling?
Well, one of my earliest memories is watching Clash of the Champions in WCW.
Yeah.
There was a traumatic moment that happened during that. Not the actual show, but in my personal life that started happening with that. But I was watching Clash of the Champions, and I just remember it so vividly.
Yeah.
And, I was like 3-4 years old. That's one of my earliest memories.
Very
nowadays.
nice. Very nice.
Yeah, so I started off with WCW first, which is kind of shocking in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And then got into WWF as well, and I just became a full-on wrestling fan because I loved it so much. To me, it was live action superheroes and supervillains.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it as a little kid. And you can still kind of make the argument it's like that now, but it's a little more realistic based for the most part, although some things aren't.
Yeah.
And, we'll get into that kind of stuff. But I grew up watching it basically all of my single-digit years. And then around the time that WCW closed down and ECW closed down, both bought out by WWF at the time, later WWE, I basically kind of lost interest. Like, even back in 2001, I knew that only one wrestling company was not going to be exciting to me anymore.
Yeah.
And I kind of just moved on to music, and I became really obsessed with Metallica and stuff like that. But, and, I'm here where I am now. And then I basically just ignored all wrestling stuff until about the end of 2016.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what about you?
Yeah, so me, I can't remember exactly what age I started watching wrestling, but really as far back as I can remember, I've been watching it. I think my brother watched it too. I can't remember if anybody else in the family did, but I remember when I got into it, my mom told me how my grandma used to be into wrestling too, but at the time there was no TV, so she would listen to it on the radio, and she'd get so into it that she'd hold a Kleenex and like rip it apart and stuff because she was so into it. And I think I kind of took on that gene. So I watched all the time when I was a kid, and I just loved the drama of it. I loved the dramatic storylines. I loved just believing in it, like, I mean, even though it's fake, quote unquote, I believed in it still, and it was still real to me. But I watched up until probably 99, 2000. It just changed a lot then. I felt like it started getting, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just too cheesy for me. Like, the storylines were shifting more towards realism, I would say then, but not in a good way that I enjoyed. And it just kind of lost its luster for me. So I gave up on it as well. And I did not get back into it until 2016 as well.
Yeah, and what started our moments of getting back into wrestling? Well, it all started with a meme.
It did.
There was a meme that I shared with you that had the Heart Foundation.
Yes.
But it had the Deicide logo
Yes.
in there instead.
Oh.
Which is just hilarious to me to this day.
Hilarious.
And I shared it with you, and then we never really talked about wrestling before.
Not
we
really.
never had a reason to.
No.
But then I asked you if you ever watched wrestling, and then it turns out you did, and it kind of just spiraled from there.
It did.
And then we started looking some stuff up on YouTube, like classic wrestling moments, and
Yes.
people talking about wrestling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we eventually started watching the WWE Network.
Yes.
And we had the very lofty goal of watching every single episode of Raw.
We were insane.
We were insane. That was never going to happen.
No.
I don't even think we made it to 95. I think
We watched a handful, and then we're like, no, we'll watch like pay-per-views and stuff.
No.
No?
We were just going to watch the old stuff.
Yeah.
But then it's like, we're just getting the network to watch the old stuff. We don't care about the new stuff.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
cares? But then magically, Royal Rumble 2017 happens.
Yes.
And we just decide, hey, why don't we see what WWE's up to after all this time?
Well, we heard that The Undertaker might be like his final match or coming up or something.
Well, that was a lie.
I know, right? But I love The Undertaker. That was my favorite wrestler as a child, so I had to see it. I had to see what he was like nowadays, and yeah.
And what did you think of the Royal Rumble 2017?
It was exciting. It was all new people, and it seemed entertaining. It's kind of like a shiny penny. After, having buried your treasure in the backyard for 20 years. The Undertaker was rough. The Undertaker was rough, but outside of him, there was some, new personalities, and it seemed interesting.
And we were actually enjoying it for quite a bit of time.
We were.
And I don't think there was a particular moment, but at some point we just stopped enjoying what WWE was doing.
Yeah.
Do you remember why that was?
I mean, I think it's a mix of a few different things. I mean, one thing that they do, and other places do too, AEW, kind of main.
Well, I think we need to get to that point first. We're talking about just WWE.
Yeah, that's true. They definitely have a lot of the same people they focus on. Like, they have, like, their, 3-4 women that they push, and that's about it. They have their main, like, few guys they push, and that's about it.
But also to counterpoint that, they did that back in the day, too. I mean, did Barry Horowitz ever really get a real push? Did Al Snow ever get a real push?
With titles, yes, but I felt like they still gave more importance to storylines with the people who didn't have titles, too. I think they were better with stories back then, and they were better at giving everybody stories back then, and they were also allowed people to have more say in what they'd say out there and kind of run their own storyline a little bit more.
Well, the PG era definitely clamped down on that.
Yeah. But yeah, the storylines were kind of just blah. The wrestling was pretty lame too. I mean, honestly, it was pretty simple back in the day too. But I felt like now, like, people were being held back from wrestling as good as they could.
Yeah, it's protection protocols and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just remember back in the day, how many matches Hulk Hogan won with his leg drop. How many matches The Rock won with the people's elbow.
Oh, for sure.
Just like the absurdity of all the moves out there. And of course that continues on today. Like, what's the most devastating move in pro wrestling? The spear.
The spear, yes.
A football tackle.
Yeah.
Like, no Canadian destroyers or blue thunder bombs can compete with a football tackle.
And a Superman punch.
Which is, no, that's never been a finisher.
No, I know.
That just sets it up for the spear.
Exactly.
But no, just like the insanity of it all, you have to accept it. Because if you just go into it like, well, that's so stupid, why would they do stuff like that? You're never going to enjoy it. So you have to realize, like, there's stories going on, there's gimmicks going on.
Check your ego at the door.
Yes. Like, you have to accept the circus in front of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with me, also the same thing. It's like it seemed like they started pushing some people and then immediately backtracked. There was also stories that never got followed up on. Like, one thing in wrestling, again, kind of like I was talking about, like, you just have to accept clown show going on.
Yeah.
Is the more you pay attention, the more you will be punished.
That is true.
Because they will change stories on the turn of a dime. People get injured. They just start to go in different directions. Like, you have to forget about that to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But we're also the kind of people who don't like to forget that kind of stuff.
I know.
Which makes it hard. And then every subsequent week, it got a little bit harder and a little bit harder to watch.
Yeah.
But there was a turning point.
Yeah, there was.
From YouTube, we were watching people talk about wrestling, which is really hard to do now because if you think that metal clickbait and stuff like that is rough, you haven't seen wrestling clickbait and engagement baiting.
That is true.
Because it is so much worse. So much worse.
It is.
But as we were watching it, we started hearing stuff about outside of WWE.
Yeah.
Because we were wondering, like, is there anything outside of VFW halls and high school gyms in wrestling?
Yeah.
And it turns out, not really. Not in America. Like, a lot of the stuff was, like, indie stuff going on. TNA had come and gone, and they were doing, like, really, really small shows. Ring of Honor was in Fridley.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine that now.
I know, right?
It's so weird to think about.
Oh.
But we started hearing about this little group known as Bullet Club.
Yes.
And we started hearing about the people that were a part of that.
Yeah.
And particularly the head of the Bullet Club at that time.
Mr. Kenneth Omega.
Kenny Omega, yes. Started learning more about him and his style of wrestling, and we really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Like, what did you think of Kenny the first time you saw him?
It was just another class of wrestling. I mean, nobody in WWE compared to that. Like, skill-wise, like, he was amazing. Like,
Well, it depends on who you ask, especially the shills at WWE.
Well, yeah, that's another story. But I loved what he did wrestling wise. I loved the storylines they had going on. I loved just the personas of him and the other Bullet Club members. Yeah.
That still might be your favorite gimmick is the cleaner.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Or at least one of them, yeah.
Yeah, and we watched back then the current stuff and the stuff previously with him. It was fantastic stuff, but there was a moment that changed everything, at least for me, and I still hold it as one of the greatest wrestling stories told, is the saga between Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada.
Yes.
Their 4 matches in New Japan are 4 of the best matches I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
And that made me wish so much that there could be another company in America that could compete
Exactly.
with WWE.
Yeah.
But just like holding the monkey's paw and granting a wish, be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
Because around this time, things were starting to build up into basically Cody Rhodes, which is so funny now because he's currently the WWE champion.
Yes.
Undisputed champion is what they're referred to now as. And of course, if it's undisputed, what's all the fighting about? But Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, they put on a little pay-per-view called All In 2018.
They sure did.
That really did change the landscape of American pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Looking back on it now, what do you think of All In 2018?
It was amazing. And it just, even though like when we first got back into WWE, like it kind of reinvigorated us, this was a whole new level because it brought in people from all different wrestling organizations. It really was an all-in situation. And the wrestling was amazing. Everybody was allowed to show what type of wrestling they were into, be themselves. It was very inclusive. It was just fun, and it's something you hadn't seen before.
Unless you were into like the independent wrestling.
Yeah.
Because, there was all like Extreme Pro Wrestling, Combat Zone Wrestling, like all the deathmatch stuff was going on.
Oh, sure. But this is the first one that brought like all of the different kinds together.
Yes. Well, thank you for bearing the lead.
Yeah, you do it to me too.
Yeah, I know. And it never stops. But it's a little hard to go back to that one. And it's because of some of the people who were involved in All In 2018.
Yeah.
Jimmy Havoc, Joey Ryan.
Yeah.
All you have to do is look them up. I really don't want to get into it.
Yeah, there's been,
But what they were going for is what made it great. Because you had the technical matches. You had death matches. You had legendary wrestlers a part of it. Rey Mysterio was a part of it. You had all of these great types of wrestling things going on. And, the internet wrestling community, how well their opinions matter and stuff like that. But it kind of did, because everyone started really revolting against WWE at this point and were really clamoring for a change.
Yeah.
And that very same year, although technically New Year's Eve 2019,
Yes.
a major thing happened. And what was that?
It was essentially announced that AEW was going to be a new wrestling organization.
What is AEW?
All Elite Wrestling. Now that it has become official and whatnot, years down the line, it was a wrestling organization created by Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, and Tony Khan, as it was the Financial Baker CEO.
And his dad.
Yes, and his dad.
And at least on paper, it promised to be everything that WWE wasn't.
Yes.
And nothing could have made us more excited.
No, not at all.
And we were just like chomping at the bit for, okay, Double or Nothing. The next pay-per-view like this is going to be happening. It's going to be in Vegas. It's going to be MGM Grand, where WCW had all of their pay-per-views so often. It's just going to be this style of wrestling going on. I'm so excited. And then it turned out that they actually struck a TV deal with TBS.
They did.
So again, like WCW, where they get to be on TBS programming. They were going to be on every week, 2 hours every week. It just seemed perfect.
Yes.
4 pay-per-views a year and then a weekly TV show.
Yep.
What more could you ask for?
It was great. It was great.
And for the first couple years, and even through the pandemic, it was just everything that I wanted.
It was.
It had the deathmatch style stuff at times. They had people from other companies coming in and doing guest matches. They were like pushing brand new people that you haven't heard of before previously, unless you were really deep into the independent scene. They had a couple legends, but they were never meant to hold a title. I mean, Chris Jericho was there and he was the first champion. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
But that was also done to bring in people from the WWE crowd.
Exactly.
It made total sense.
Absolutely.
And all throughout those years of basically 2019 to 2022, it was everything that I wanted in wrestling, and Wednesdays became my favorite day of the week.
Yeah.
But then in 2022 into 2023, things started to take a shift. First of all, it was announced that there was going to be another new AEW show.
Yes.
Rampage, which was like a one-off show. Basically, for anyone who remembers WCW, Dynamite, which is the 2-hour show on Wednesdays, is basically like their Monday Night Nitro. And then Rampage was basically their WCW Thunder, all pre-recorded, just 1 hour, gimmick matches, jobber matches, all that stuff.
And at this time when that started, they also had 2 YouTube shows going on as well.
Yes, but that was for like the ones who were like deeply invested in everything.
Yeah.
Like the average person like watching just on cable wasn't gonna go watch 2-page.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people didn't even know what Being the Elite was, which we didn't even talk about. That was the other thing that really got us into everything outside of
Yeah.
WWE was
Yeah.
Being the Elite.
Yes.
A show created by the Young Bucks. Originally, it was just like 4 or 5 minutes of them like talking about their indie show that they were. And then eventually, it became this gigantic universe inside of wrestling, outside of WWE. And sometimes it would go for like 5 minutes. Sometimes it went over an hour. But it was always enjoyable up to a point.
Yeah.
Basically, the end of the pandemic is when AEW basically took the fun machine and killed it.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But the reason I bring that up so much about Rampage is because the second episode of Rampage was going to be in Chicago, Illinois, at the biggest arena in Chicago. And they kept teasing something about like the best of wrestling, the best in the world, all this kind of stuff. I wasn't really privy to because I've only heard of a person who referred to themselves like that in passing.
Yeah.
Never watched their matches, never watched their interviews, none of that stuff.
Yep.
Just wasn't privy to it, not my generation. But the man, the myth, the legend, CM Punk came into AEW and it became the biggest watershed moment of AEW's career so far.
Yeah.
Now, when he first popped up, what did you think?
I mean, like you, he was really popular at the time when I wasn't watching wrestling, so I knew very little of him, just kind of in passing, people referring to him and talking about him. And of course, his one horror movie that he did, we saw.
We did watch that.
Yeah.
And it was a great soundtrack for me. But
Yeah.
the ending was absolute horse crap, though.
But I mean, I was open to, learning about him and seeing what he was like. And when he started, I enjoyed his personality. I enjoyed his wrestling. I enjoyed learning a little bit more about him. He won me over with some things.
And there's a lot on the social justice stuff that I agree with him 100% on.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
couldn't agree more with him on. And everything seemed to be going okay when he first showed up.
Yeah.
But that only lasted a few weeks, as there was a moment that happened in All Out 2022 that was basically the straw that broke Camel's back, although we didn't realize it. It was a moment where CM Punk basically stopped making it a wrestling show and just made it about himself, which apparently he is known to do, and I have learned that since. It is where there is a media scrum after every pay-per-view where wrestlers come back, they talk about the matches, potentially what's going on in the future, any drama, blah, blah, blah. This one, the poop hit the fan because he was first, he won the title that night, and he started going off on everybody and everything. And it went from like hurting his former best friend Cole Cabana and like talking major crap about him to what is now known as Brawl Out.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain what Brawl Out is?
So after he got done with the scrum and went backstage, the Young Bucks went and Kenny Omega went to have a chat with him, and apparently
Because of everything he said.
Apparently him and his laggy at the time, I can't remember his name.
Ace Steel.
Ace
the Animal Steel, as I like to refer to him as.
Apparently they started an altercation with the Young Bucks and there began a bit of a fight. Ace Steel apparently bit Kenny's ear really like full on Mike Tyson moment, like complete brawl between them. Yeah.
And what was the fallout to everything that happened at Brawlout? Not what's going on now. I meant like immediately after.
People were suspended, or what were you
Well,
talking
there was
about?
a suspension. They were looking into things, but the point I was taking was, Tony Khan had a choice here.
Oh, absolutely.
Was he going to go with the people who started the company with him?
Right.
That were the executive vice presidents of the company? Or was he going to be going after the golden goose in his eyes and make this man who started all these fights and complaining and swearing on TV when you weren't supposed to and doing all this other stuff?
Yeah.
Make him infallible.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly the direction that he went.
Of course.
He put CM Punk on this complete and utter pedestal where you are the saving grace of this company. Anything you want is yours after starting all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And within that year, and I do say year, he of course won every match that he was a part of. There was a new show that got announced called Collision, which would air on Saturday nights. Still going.
Yeah.
Where they were basically going to be doing a brand split where the people who took the elite side stayed on Dynamite. The ones that were willing to work with CM Punk would go on Collision.
Yes.
And he got his own title as well. Like, out of nowhere, he just magically got a title. He didn't win a match for it. He just was granted a title, which he called the X title, and spray painted it in black X because if you're not familiar with the background of CM Punk, he is straight edge. And of course, the X is his whole thing. Like, his fist does an X with both fists and all that stuff. Like, he's so proud of never drinking and speaking and doing drugs. And I can only imagine at this point, fornicating as well. But
Jeez.
you got to stay abstinent to all of it.
Oh.
But, sorry, you were about to interrupt me.
Well, I was just saying previously he had to give up his title, so that's why they now created another one so he could get his title back, essentially.
Right. Like, he didn't earn the title.
No.
But basically, this whole show was the CM Punk show.
Yeah.
And this was, of course, around the time that we started noticing the kinks in the machine.
Yeah.
The cogs in the machine were starting to spin weird.
Yeah.
Started seeing steam and smoke in places that wasn't there before.
Yes.
And at least to us, everything started to go downhill. And we really started to notice the problems with AEW.
Yeah.
Now, what were your problems that started arising as
Yeah, so quite a few. I mean, first of all, just going a little deeper with this scuttle between those two, the Young Bucks also seemed to not really have a place anymore. And their storylines just started plummeting, whereas CM Punk was still on his little pedestal.
And Kenny as well.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Outside of that, I
also should mention at this point, even though he's not an EVP, Hangman Adam Page, who is or was a part of the Elite, actually became AEW champion at this point.
Yes.
But lost the title to CM Punk, and then got injured immediately and had to give up the title.
Yep.
And, there's more with the next year that came about. But yeah, continue on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like things just started becoming more and more predictable to the point where even now, like, we're not watching it and we can still say who's going to win what matches because it's a given. I would also say they got more and more towards the just a few people being pushed and being shown on TV every week. I mean, especially during the pandemic, they had a lot of people like working with AEW. Not all of them signed, but some of them just by match and stuff. But they had so many good wrestlers, and then all of a sudden they're all gone. You didn't hear from any of them anymore. Who knows if they're even wrestling out there anymore?
And a theory I have with that is when outside of wrestling, when basically TNT, TBS, True TV, all owned under the Warner Brothers company.
Yeah.
But there was a merger that happened around this time as well with Discovery Channel of all things, and they became Warner Brothers Discovery. And the leader of that company is very much on the right of political leanings.
Yeah, so that definitely played a role, I think, in at least some wrestlers not being shown anymore.
The reason we say that is one of the things that we really enjoyed about AEW in the beginning was it was so inclusive.
Yes.
Everyone was welcome. They had guys that were too short to ever be in WWE. They had transgender wrestlers. They had gender fluid wrestlers. They had women fighting men. They had all these different things that were going on.
Yeah.
But then I've noticed as soon as that merger after happened, everything got restricted.
Yeah.
And that's why we don't see Nyla Rose much anymore. And
Nope.
I can't imagine she's going to be with the company much longer.
I can imagine. No.
Sonny Kiss, who is arguably one of the best wrestlers out there,
Yes.
completely lost their spot.
Yep.
And just so many things wrong with it.
Yeah. Another thing we started noticing was that instead of kind of having more homegrown talent like they were big on it at the start, they kept bringing more and more ex-WWE people in, which is fine to bring some of them in, but they were automatically pushed right to the top. They were the focal points. Doesn't matter if they've had any matches, won any matches. The rating system is completely out the window. It's
No. It's back now.
well, it's there, but is it really used? They were just pushed automatically. Like they were the best thing ever.
Yeah, and that is still going on, and we'll get to that moment in a bit. But all of these cracks in the armor started happening.
Yeah.
And then a year later, after Brawlout, 51 weeks, I guess you could say,
Sure.
there was the 2023 pay-per-view known as All in London. And there was a match that happened there with CM Punk versus Samoa Joe.
Yes.
Thought nothing of it.
Yeah.
Nothing of it whatsoever. Just a normal match. CM Punk was going to win because, it's like he's the top guy in the company because of nostalgia reasons.
Exactly.
But then some stuff started to happen backstage.
Yeah.
And it's going on even to a few weeks ago.
I know, right?
There was a scuttlebutt that happened between CM Punk and Jack Perry, saving all the boring details out of the way. And wouldn't you know it, a few weeks ago, we saw the security footage of all of this from almost 9 months ago.
Yes.
CM Punk attacked Jack Perry for real, not a wrestling angle, for real.
Yeah.
Then he pushed Tony Khan up against the wall and was threatening to beat him up, and all these different things happening, and essentially CM Punk more or less quit.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all of that as well, like he won a title, then he got injured, and then he won it again, and then he got injured again. So just like constantly ruining the storylines going on.
Yes.
But finally, there was a committee that was formed by AEW, apparently led by Bryan Danielson, and it was determined that CM Punk was to be fired.
Yeah.
And he was.
Yes.
What did you think of that actually happening?
It should have happened at the last scuttle. Like, from an HR perspective, like, if you, like, rip apart... I know it's wrestling, I know there's storylines and all this stuff, but knowing that's not part of storyline, the fact that he, like, completely, like, defamated, like, his fellow coworkers in live media, and then he had a physical altercation that he started. Like, he shouldn't have been with the company anymore after that first incident.
Yeah, and it also goes to prove that there is no such thing as HR in All Elite Wrestling.
No. Well, in
And if
wrestling
there
in
is-
general, a lot of times.
Yeah, if there is, there's no backbone.
Absolutely.
Now, there
absolutely.
is HR in WWE. They have like drug tests and they other
Well,
things there. There's a lot of problems with it.
I was going to say there's HR in some ways.
Yes.
Not the ways that it should be.
Is there an AEW? I don't think there really was until this altercation. I
know.
think there was like obviously like hiring, managerial stuff, make sure that all the ducks are in a row. But when it comes to conduct,
Well, and even
that was non-existent.
well, and even then they brought in outside HR people.
Yeah, which, that's always a good sign. Mm-hmm. But CM Punk was fired, and a few months later, he decided to show up in WWE, the
Yeah.
company he said he would never return to, especially when Vince McMahon was in charge.
Yup.
So, money talks.
It absolutely does.
But there was the small part of me that was like, okay, CM Punk is gone. Maybe his influence is finally gone from AEW.
Yeah.
Maybe we can finally start to enjoy AEW the way that it used to be again. Did that happen?
No. I mean, it was great that he was gone, but all the issues still remained and just kept getting worse, I would say.
And what are those issues that start to continue to today?
Well, the same ones I mentioned. I mean, very, very, very predictable. More and more WWE people coming in and just being the focal point of every episode.
Which
Storyline.
we can even go back to almost 2 months ago now.
Yeah.
Where there was a Dynamite that had the sub name of Big Business.
Yes.
And for anyone that's been a wrestling fan of the current age, Big Business in Boston with dollar signs for the S's. Who could this possibly be?
Huh.
Well, it turned out it was the former Sasha Banks,
Yeah.
the money, and now she is the was there CFO? Is that what she's?
No,
like-
she's the CEO.
Oh, it actually is the CEO
Yeah.
of AEW. And just that theme song was just, it's like a dentist drill whenever I hear it.
It really is.
Mercedes Moné.
Yes.
Yes, money. Get it?
Ha.
And they're doing it again. They're taking someone that was popular in WWE, pushing them straight to the top without having to prove themselves in any way, shape, or form, just because of nostalgia. And now I'm pretty darn sure next month she's going to be a champion in her very first match.
Yep.
Without being in any other kind of match or altercation or anything.
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly.
Like, Willow Nightingale is going to be a champion for around a month for no reason.
Yep.
What did she do to lose the title that quickly? Nothing.
Exactly.
It's just to push a talent that, let's face it, was never good to begin with.
Yeah.
She's terrible on the microphone. She can't wrestle. She injured Paige, now Saraya.
Yeah.
Broke her neck too. And why is it okay to keep doing this? Is it just for the ratings? Is it just for the money involved? Like, what happened to AEW?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I would also say the storylines have just, when there even is a storyline, it is so not fully baked. It's just ridiculous and lame.
The moment that I basically stopped caring, and well, first I should say, there are moments of AEW I still thoroughly enjoy.
Yes, there are moments. There are
There are
moments.
people in AEW that I still thoroughly enjoy.
Yes.
But the moment where everything basically was dead to me was this half-year storyline between MJF and Adam Cole.
Yes.
Started off in one of our least favorite things, a mashup tag team tournament to win titles.
Yes.
Now, for anyone not familiar, sometimes there's things called tag teams where it's like a full-on partners who train together, wrestle together, do all this stuff. But this was a tournament where you had random people working together to become
Yep.
champions. And wouldn't you know it, it was all basically one big story arc for MJF, who's the biggest heel in AEW, to work with Adam Cole, who was becoming someone who used to be in WWE, one of the bigger names that was going on the hero side. And it was just like 6 months of them like, I trust you, I trust you, I don't trust you, I don't trust you. It just kept going.
Yeah.
And there were some fantastic moments that started happening there. Some like gut-busting funny stuff.
Yeah, they became
Emotional
best friends
moments.
essentially.
Yeah, emotional moments going on where you really cared if you cared about what was going on. But all of a sudden, there was a twist that started happening, as at one point, MJF referred to himself as the devil.
Yes.
In fact, he even came out to like Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones for a pay-per-view. That was just like kind of his gimmick. I forgot something with the devil. I'm forgetting now because I'm getting lost in my words. But there was someone that started dressing up as a devil, took a mask that MJF had, started wearing it,
Yep.
basically trying to be the devil. And all this time it's like, well, who is it? Is it MJF showing his true heel side?
Yeah.
Is it someone brand new coming into the company? Is it someone returning to AEW? All of these things. And in one of the most wet fart moments that I've seen in wrestling, and in predictability, it was Adam Cole. He started a brand new faction with people that he used to work with and Wardlow.
Yes.
And created a faction no one cares about.
Yeah.
That's what that all built up to. And wouldn't you know it, it was also so MJF could take some time off and lose the championship that he had won and heal up much like Kenny did. But everything that had happened after this reveal, I just stopped caring. I was flabbergasted that they did this. But what about you?
Yes.
Like, what did you think of this
Oh,
moment?
my flabbers were gasted as well. Like it was such a good build up. Like seeing them like be like best friends doing all these crazy things together was hilarious. Because MJF is like so good at being a heel or a baby face. Like he can do it all. He is amazing.
He is a true pro wrestler.
Absolutely. And then just to end it on such a really note. Like it was just so lackluster. It could have been so much more.
And they haven't recovered.
No.
They're just doing the same problems that they had before. Like, should also mention that Adam Copeland, formerly Edge of WWF, WWE, is like the main guy in AEW now.
Yep.
Mercedes Moné doing the same thing. Although I should say they actually put Swerve Strickland, who used to be in NXT for a little bit of time, but really more of an indie guy.
Yeah.
He's champion right now in AEW.
Finally.
Which is cool to see.
He deserved it a long time ago.
Yes. And of course, Prince Nana deserves his own title.
Yes, he does.
But, I mean, again, there's a couple good things that are going on, but it's overshadowed by all these terrible antics that they're doing with terrible storylines, terrible matches where it's just like jobber matches that you can see coming a mile away. Like we mentioned, like, you give us the Double or Nothing pay-per-view coming up next month during Memorial Day weekend. We just see the card. We don't see the build-up at all.
Yeah.
We can almost guarantee we can get 100% on who's gonna win.
Yeah.
Which should not happen.
No.
Because if you could predict it, why are you watching?
Exactly.
And we finally just gave up. And we gave up even before we cut the cable.
Yeah.
Like, we used to watch every single Wednesday. Then it just became occasionally.
Yeah.
Then not at all.
Yeah.
Then we cut the cable last week. Is that to say that pro wrestling sucks now? No. Because I thoroughly believe that everything outside of WWE and AEW are doing great things right now. What about you?
Yeah, a lot anyways. I mean, we've started to check out more and more indie promotions. There's some that haven't kept our attention too well, but
Well, I meant every established one. I don't mean the ones that are doing the high school gymnasiums.
yeah. But yeah, there are some great ones out there. New Japan is obviously wonderful. GCW is one of our favorites now. Like, there's some good stuff out there.
And even though we've only seen one episode, Hood Slam has become one of my new favorite companies.
Yes.
And over WrestleMania weekend, this past WrestleMania weekend, we checked out so much indie wrestling.
We did.
Mainly GCW.
Yeah.
But it showed so many great people that work in all these other companies.
Yeah.
And it basically, at least to me, I don't know how it is for you, but what made me appreciate everything that was going on outside of WWE and AEW was the cluster F.
Yes.
You had 87 different people a part of this in an over 2-hour long match.
Yeah.
And you got to see all these different styles. You got to see deathmatch stuff. You got to see the high flying stuff. You got to see the mixed gender wrestling. You got to see some of the most hilarious moments I've ever seen in wrestling.
Yeah.
Blow up dolls, Hello Kitty knockoffs, and like all the tropes that there is about wrestling, they made fun of.
Yeah.
They made it enjoyable. It was so tongue in cheek. And was it crap? Probably.
Yeah.
But there was true heart behind it that just made it so much fun.
100%.
And that's what I miss about watching WWE and AEW. The fun is gone.
Yeah, it was a match made for real wrestling fans.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, like, it just went to such absurd moments, including hearing all of Teenage Dirtbag by Wheatley.
And everyone singing along.
Every wrestler that was out there, everyone in the crowd, everyone sang all of it.
Yes.
And then they started it over again. If you know anything about wrestling and entrances and how they do things, it was the perfect shot at it.
It was.
Like, it poked fun at all the terrible things that there are about wrestling, but made it enjoyable.
Yes.
And that just brought back some of the joy that I have about wrestling again. Like,
yeah.
We have, well, it used to be Fight, but now it's Triller TV Plus. $8 a month. It has all these different kind of indie promotions on there, mainly GCW.
Yeah.
But you can also get your TNA and AEW and stuff like that papes through there. Sadly, not cheaper, although if you get a VPN, you save $20 for a pay-per-view. But I digress. And we've been checking out a lot of stuff. Hood Slam is a wrestling company based out of San Francisco, created by a wrestler known as Dark Sheik.
Yes.
Who is a transgender wrestler, adult star, and many other things.
Yeah.
Who created basically a comedy, almost improv wrestling company.
Yeah.
And it's just just hilarious what they do.
It is.
It may not be the best wrestling you ever see.
No.
But it is so much fun to watch.
It is. Yeah.
And they have the slogan of it being 21 plus, so don't bring your effing kids. Which, it's not like you're going to see any sex or murder or anything. It's just a lot of swearing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
And we've watched other GCW shows since WrestleMania weekend, and they're not as good as what happened during WrestleMania weekend, but I still enjoyed all of it so much more than what was going on in AEW and WWE.
Yeah.
And we watched WrestleMania. We watched the last AEW pay-per-view before Dynasty. We did all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I had more fun just spending the $8 a month watching GCW and other indie promotions. So to wrap all of this up, because we've been going a while on this, what is your takeaways of the state of wrestling today?
My takeaway is that AEW is becoming more and more like WWE. Which I understand they're competing with them, but you started yourself as being something different, and it's really sad that it's not anymore. WWE, I mean, even though like we got back into it for a while, I can't say I'm surprised that I'm not into it anymore now, because there was a point in the past where I got not into it as well. I don't see things changing for WWE or AEW really ever, because I think the almighty dollar determines what they do. But I'm just glad we do have things like GCW and New Japan as well, if we ever want to watch something there. Because it's still fun. I mean, it's not exactly like it was back in the day, because things were definitely very different when we were kids watching it, but
almost all of our wrestling heroes back in the day turned out to be dirtbags.
Yeah, for the most part. But at least
makes it harder to go back to.
Yeah, but at least like you said, it's fun. It's fun watching it, and there's something we can enjoy at least.
My last note on this, and I've mentioned it to you before. I can't remember if I've mentioned it on here when we were doing the WrestleMania recap.
Yeah.
But I've just learned that WWE and AEW are like mainstream rock.
Yeah.
There is some bands and there's some songs that I enjoy. When you turn on the radio, I will enjoy them. But there's so much of it that is not meant for me.
Yeah.
That I can't listen to it.
It's true.
The fact that whenever we get in the car, we listen to a local entertainment talk channel called My Talk 107.1 that is about entertainment gossip, stuff that I will never care about.
Yeah.
I listen to that over listening to any rock station in our local area. I mean, obviously we could listen to Spotify and stuff like that. That is not lost on me.
Yeah.
But the point is, I would rather check that out than what's on mainstream rock radio. And I can apply that to wrestling here, where I enjoy the underground wrestling so much more than mainstream stuff. It can make fun of the mainstream. It gets to be its own thing. There's less restrictions. They get to do what they want to. Is it going to pay as much? No. Is there going to be as many people there? Of course not. Is it going to be in venues that, are they going to be in arenas or stadiums? Absolutely not. I mean, the last GCW match that we watched was basically like at a steakhouse bar and grill. I'm aware of this, but I had so much more fun watching that than watching something where I knew everything that was going to happen before it happened. And maybe that's for you. Maybe if you're a wrestling fan, you enjoy something that's just mindless and you just want to see the Crisco flying. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want. But I can't do that anymore. And I just prefer the stuff that is not being shoved down my throat. I prefer picking and choosing what I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah.
So what about you folks? Are you a wrestling fan? Are you turned off from wrestling having heard us talk about this for around like an hour before all the cuts? Are you intrigued to watch it now? Yeah, this is basically just us talking about it, but let us know down below your thoughts on the state of pro wrestling in 2024. And now for our third and final part of the show, we're going to be getting into some music stuff here. Talking about some brand new singles that have come out in the past week, and of course, everything that I covered as of today, because we're recording this on Friday, so it's technically accurate, out today, and what I missed for April 26, 2024. But again, let's get into those singles.
All right, let's do it. Up first, most importantly, we listened to the new single from Motley Crue, Dogs of War.
Yes, we did. I think it was Metal Sucks that said that not even John 5 can save the new Motley Crue song.
Oh dear, yeah,
I find it to be very, very generic.
Yeah.
I don't even hear like Motley Crue in the early days at all. All I hear is like the mid to late 90s Motley Crue when I hear this. There's like the electronic drums that happen in the verses, the Vince Neil trying to be aggressive with his voice, and oh god, is that autotune to oblivion? The lyrical content, like, you broke up and came back for this? You kicked Mick Mars out of the band for this? This is what you're proud of? This is what you stand behind in 2024? It is awful.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but I'm just more confused as to why you would come back with this. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I said when I heard it was, who knew that Mick Mars was like the one writing force behind Motley Crue?
And of course, I said after that, anyone who's listened to Motley Crue.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, aside from recognizing that it's Vince singing, it does not sound like a Motley Crue song at all. At all.
Makes you wish that Brandon was a bigger song.
That was amazing. That was a bop compared to this, as the kids would say. A banger.
I think they used to say that. I think they're on the different words now.
Who
but,
if they do, I don't know what the words are now.
Now, if this is the single, I have absolutely zero hope for the rest of the album.
Oh.
Because with a band like Motley Crue, their best songs are the singles. They are not the rest of the album. They are what people complain about with albums with nothing but filler.
Yeah.
And the early day Motley Crue is a different example of that. Like, there were some good, faster, heavier songs.
Oh, yeah.
But once they found their niche, those album tracks are so hard to listen to.
Maybe.
And how could anyone have any hope that Motley Crue is going to be putting out the best material of their career with this new album?
Maybe Tommy finally wrote Dylan because he gave up on Brandon.
How many times does he listen to that song while he's beating Brandon?
That is a question. But moving onward, we also listened to the new Hammerfall single, Hail to the King. Their new album will be coming out in August, Avenge the Fallen.
Oh, why don't you go first on this one? What did you think of it?
I liked it. So, I mean, 2 years ago was their last album, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was an amazing album. That was one of my favorites from them in a bit. It was a lot harder than a lot of their previous stuff, and it was just catchy as can be. I mean, granted, all their music is, they kind of know their sound and their niche and stuff, but
not everything can be dreams come true.
That is true. This song, it's definitely dialed back a little bit compared to the last album. It's not as hard, not as intricate, definitely a little bit more simple, but it still definitely has that classic Hammerfall sound. Still super catchy. So I mean, I still enjoyed it. I don't know that it's going to be as high album wise if the rest of the album sounds like this as the last album, but I still liked it.
Yeah, I feel like this was meant to be a live song.
Yeah.
This is the kind of song that is going to go over so well when you hear it live.
Yeah, totally.
And I kind of feel like that's the album that this is going to be. I feel like this is probably going to be a good representation of what New Hammerfall is going to be like.
Yeah.
Because their previous album was like, it was dark, it was heavy, it was more intricate.
Yeah.
It had King Diamond in one of the worst displays of a guest appearance.
It quote unquote had him. I couldn't hear him at all.
Yes, we could.
I couldn't.
Oh, come on. He did his falsetto at the end.
I didn't hear it.
Well, if you played it, you would hear it.
I listened to it many times.
Oh,
I never
come
heard
now.
it. Oh, pish posh.
Well, anyways, I feel like this is kind of like a course correction for the band, where I think more people enjoyed the previous album, but I think they just want to make an album of live songs, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's the reason to go see them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't you know it, they're currently on tour right now
Yes.
with Camelot and Ad Infinitum.
They are.
And, oh, I wish I still enjoyed Ad Infinitum, but they had to go the...
Or Camelot.
Well, they only have one album that we haven't enjoyed.
Well, that's true. That's true.
It's only been one.
Yeah.
But I was going to say that Ad Infinitum went down the Amaranth route.
That is
I
true.
got lost in my words.
That
my
is true.
apologies. But yeah, everything has to be pop. But anyways, I think it's going to be a good Hammerfall album.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with how amazing their previous album was, and I dare say it's my favorite Hammerfall album, it'd be really hard to try to get that. So doing a little course correction, just writing some good live songs, I think it's the right direction.
Yeah. I don't know know if the previous album can beat Crimson Thunder for me, but it's up there though.
Crimson Thunder's amazing.
It is.
But just something about the last one just hit me so hard.
I understand. Up next, we checked out Paul Bearer with Endless Place.
Yes, the second single. The first single, When the Light Fades, you actually said was the first Paul Bearer song you ever liked.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is good too. I mean, it was very, very calm, very just kind of a relaxing mood to it, you know? Not as good as the first one, I would say, but it was okay still, you know?
I have a different take, and I actually found this to be quite the crushing song. I mean,
Yeah.
like the tone of it and everything with how heavy it was. Like, obviously, Paul Bearer's never going to be the kind of band that does grind or anything like that. They're a doom band.
Yeah.
And like the crushingness of all of like it's mellow, like it's almost it's sadly relaxing.
Yeah.
But the music behind it was also very, very crushing to me. It had a sax solo, which probably ruined you enjoying the song. Let's call a spade here.
Yeah.
But the more that I listen to the lyrics and the more that I hear the arrangement of the song, it was just a gut punch to me in the best way. And it's why I love Doom, because I'm a depressed SOB. And I love hearing music that matches how I feel pretty much every day. And I have a good feeling this is going to be very, very high on my album of the year list 1 weeks that coming up soon. I mean, we're almost in May, so you know, it's not that far away now. But I think this album's going to rule. I love both tracks so far. I have the promo, but I haven't listened to it yet because of all the work that I do, but I know it's coming out within the next couple of weeks, so I'll finally be able to sit down and really appreciate the album and probably drop a tear or two because, I mean, these singles have been hitting me pretty hard emotionally, so I imagine the whole album's kind of as well.
Yeah. And finally, we have Zeal and Ardor, To My Ilk.
Yes, a song based off of, well, it seems like the whole album's going to be based off of mythical figures.
Yeah.
Like this one's based off the Griffin. And it's the softest Zeal and Ardor song I've heard from.
Yeah.
There's no black metal whatsoever. It's very mellow. I don't even know if there's real drums on it.
Yeah.
All clean vocals. I'm very curious what Manuel is doing with this album. Of course, the band has really changed over the years, going from, you know, basically being North American spirituals and black metal mixed together, like those that were indentured servants or slaves, if they chanted about saint rather than God. That was the original idea of Zeal and Ardor.
Yeah.
Then some stuff happened in Minneapolis that kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
And they started to become much more political band, which I appreciate their political leanings. This one, again, feels like they're going into like mystical figures, like the Griffin and maybe other animals as well, or figures. So I'm very, very curious about this. I don't think this song is a representation for the album. I don't think they completely dropped all rock metal.
Yeah.
But it does feel like a good song, and I'm very curious to hear it in the context of the album.
Yeah. Like you said, definitely softer than I'm used to with it definitely makes me curious what kind of the rest of the album will sound like and stuff, but I still liked it though. I still liked it. Yeah.
And those were basically the new singles that both of us checked out.
Yes.
The reason, like, maybe she heard some stuff that I haven't heard and vice versa, we're not going to cover that because it's not as interesting to just have one side on it.
Yeah.
So we're both, when we talk about the music and stuff, it's going to be stuff that we both checked out, unless we're doing our tops and stuff.
Yeah.
It's always going to be around, but, you know, we're having fun doing, like, different and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So we're just exploring some stuff. But now it is time for the granddaddy, the final part of all of this.
Yes.
OT&WIM for April 26, 2024. 12 brand new albums that I have checked out over the past week, and either stuff that has come out today as I'm recording this, or stuff that I missed along the way. And starting that off is ACXDC with GOAT. This is an LA band that is power violence, grindcore, hardcore punk, all mixed together. Very, very tongue-in-cheek with songs like Vested Interest and Thought Police, THOT Police.
Nice.
They're a very fun band. But what did you think?
I first will say I like the cover of the album. It's a goat on it, and I love goats. I would say that it's not my typical type of sound, but there's something very punky and fun about the music. It's a romp, you know? It's a romp.
And in the car yesterday, I was talking about this, and I was referring to this particular album. 17 songs, 23 minutes.
Oh, that was yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about here.
Nice.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoy it. Next up is a band that's covered all across the United States now, now, but I will always know them as a Minnesota band, Amiensis, with Reclamation Part 1. The band started off as more of a black metal band, and then they started incorporating more black gaze and post-black kind of stuff, and now they've really come into their own with more progressive black metal and hints of folk metal going on as well. What were your thoughts on this?
I liked it. Yeah, I really loved the clean vocals. I just felt like it like tied the entire song together. Yeah, I'm definitely curious to hear more of it.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy it, and it goes against your notion that all Minnesota bands suck.
I know, right? Maybe there's a few gems out there.
It's like Panopticon. Next up is probably the most genre-shifting album that I checked out this week, and what I mean by that is the brand new album from Inter Arma with New Heaven. And I feel like the title of the album kind of describes what the band is going for now, because it feels like a new chapter of the band. They started off as a very sludgy doom metal band, and now they're hitting all the polar extremes. Like, there'll be some doom metal parts, but it also goes into like grindcore and power violence and all these absolutely extreme metal moments that was never a part of the band before. And what kind of gut reaction did you have to this?
It made me queasy. Yeah, it made me feel sick.
Yeah, and I no doubt feel that was the intention of it, to make you feel uneasy.
Yeah.
Well, you in the general sense. But I do enjoy it. It took me a while to get into, though, because I love their old style so much, but I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what'll happen.
Yeah.
Next up, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, this UK band known as Stormborn has come back with their return album and their sophomore album, Zenith. This is a power metal band that has bits of revival metal and that new wave of British heavy metal sound. What did you think?
This was a big yes for me. They're power metal, but they're like heavier than a lot of power metal. Super catchy, and I really love his voice. So
And once you know it, the singer of the band's also in a death thrash band as well.
interesting.
So he uses a different style on his voice.
Okay.
There's a little bit of growls on this album too.
Yeah.
When you listen to the full album.
Yeah.
Like, they're not the main thing, and they're used very sparingly, but they're there.
Okay. They're there.
They're there. Hey, what's going on down there? Next up, we're going to Stockholm, Sweden with the brand new album from This Ending with Crowned in Blood. Their motto is melodic death metal done right, and I have to agree with that. It's not the poppy end of melodeath like you would hear in like Dark Tranquility or In Flames. It's more carcass and At the Gates. There's some melodic moments going on here, but you're not going to hear clean vocals through this. It's like melodic death metal in that early 90s style, and I think they do an amazing job of it. What about you?
Yeah, super catchy. Like you said, it is harder, but even through that, it still has really nice melodies to it. And I really like the drums on this too.
Oh, definitely some good stuff. And finally, ending things back in LA for stuff that came out today, is the brand new album from Vesperian Sorrow with Awaken the Greylight. This is symphonic black metal, a little bit of death metal going on, extreme metal. It's like if Keep of Calcian and Cradle of Filth were, and yeah, that's up my alley. Was it up your alley?
Very much so. I like this a lot. It's very dark symphonic. It has almost kind of a vampirish tone to it. Yeah, I like it a lot.
And then as for stuff that I missed along the way, this first one is the sophomore album from Volterkalmer with Weibermacht. And for those who want to hear it in English, that is Torture Chamber with Female Power. This is symphonic black metal with extreme metal and avant-garde moments. It's a very strange album. It's dark, demented, twisted, kind of erotic. But you heard the first single from this.
Yes.
And you couldn't stand it, but you heard.
Oh, I don't remember that then.
Well, we talked about this as we were going over stuff. But what did you think of this particular song, though?
This song I really liked. Very devilish, but with operetics thrown in. It kind of reminded me like if Tario said satanic.
That's a good way to put it. I just want you to check out the whole album and see if you still feel the same way throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
it might remind you of what your thoughts were.
When we were talking about before, I thought you were talking about a different band that was like this.
You're probably thinking of La Suspendia.
Okay.
But this one has it too, and if you hear different songs, you might feel differently.
All right.
But as of right now, I'm glad you enjoy it.
Yes.
Next up, we got the brand new album from one of my favorite underrated bands, Fractal Gates, with One with Dawn. I've loved this band ever since I started doing album reviews and interviews and all that stuff all the way back in 2011. And even though this is their fourth album, every time that they put out an album, it is spectacularly. And that's how I feel about this one. It's progressive mellow death, done perfectly. It's the vocals are very much in that Omnium Gatherum style. There's some froggy moments that kind of remind me of Edge of Sanity. It's everything that I asked for. What about you?
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, like you said, definitely have that Omnium feel to it. The song we listened to didn't have any clean vocals. I'd like to hear some of the other songs that have the clean vocals as well, because I was kind of expecting them throughout it, because it just had that tone that it sounded like it would have some cleans thrown in. So it threw me off a little bit when it didn't, but yeah, I really liked it nonetheless.
Next up, we're going to the Ukraine with a sophomore album from a band known as Labyrinthus Stellarum. And this is a one-man project from a 17-year-old creating some of the most inspired black metal I've heard in quite some time. Like, this is not following the traditional black metal style at all. It's a band all about the void of space where you don't see stars or planets or anything. It's just, and of course the album is called Vortex of the World, so you understand where that's coming from. It's black metal, it's trance music, it's heavily keyboarded, it's super catchy for the black metal style, a bit raw, but it totally fits for the style. And what did you think?
Yeah, I really like the music. I'm not sure how I feel about the production of the vocals. Like, I get why they sound the way they do. They're faded out, atmospheric, but it just kind of gives me that icky feeling, which I get it's part of the point of it all. It makes you feel like you're getting sucked into a black hole, but I just don't know how I feel about feeling that way.
Well, speaking from someone who's been depressed over 2/3 of his life clinically, I love it. I love that feeling. Wink, wink. Next up is the brand new album from Loch Vostok with Opus Pharaoh 2, Mark of the Beast. Perfect definition of what extreme progressive metal is. Like, they are through and through a prog metal band, but they have moments that can get super poppy and catchy, and then on the turn of a dime, do some of the fastest blast beats I've heard in quite some time, and getting into that death metal and black. Like, they just know how to genre a band in the best ways possible. And you finally got to check them out. And what did you think of it?
I liked it. It was super catchy. They have a very just like strong sound to them, and his voice is amazing.
Absolutely. Next up, a band that does not at all sound like they're from the US, which is pretty much true of all the bands that I'm covering this week. None of these bands feel like they're American bands.
No.
But it is the sophomore and return album for Oak, Ash, and Thorn with Our Grief Is Thus. This is a Denver band, a Denver trio that does power metal, black metal, folk metal, heavy metal. Like, it all fits together. It has that core sound of like power and folk, but it starts to genre bend when they start incorporating screams and growls and blast beats and other stuff. But it works so perfect to my ears.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, this was another big yes for me. Very just catchy, hard pounding metal. Again, a very strong voice too, and yeah, I liked it a lot.
Awesome. And then finally, we're ending things in the Netherlands with this Dutch band known as Volk. Even though it's spelled W-A-L-G, it is Volk. With the album 4. This is a band that started during the pandemic, basically as a reaction to all the disgust that they have about the way the world handled the pandemic, all the terrible things that we've done, and all the needless death that happens with all of it. And the music really does match that. It's in very melodic black metal. The song that I had you check out was a bit more on the not so melodic side, although as you heard later on, it does eventually get some clean vocals in there.
Yeah.
The rest of the album does match that pretty well together, but some really cool mellow black in 2024. What about you?
Yeah, so initially I'm like, well, this is fine, but it's not quite tickling my fancy. But then the cleans kicked in. I'm like, oh, well, this I enjoy, so I think I need to listen more from the album to get a true feeling for them.
And I really hope you do, or else they're going to end up on Accountability 101.
Exactly.
But that's everything that I covered. 164 albums I've covered since January this year. That means you've checked out at least parts of 164 brand new albums in 2024.
I know. How crazy is that?
How are you feeling about the first third of 2024 music?
Exhausted. But no, Yeah, there's been a ton of good stuff so far, and I'm excited to see what else the rest of the year holds.
Right on. I'm very excited as well, too. Of course, May is starting off very well, especially with the promos that I've received. Can't wait to start talking about those, but you're going to have to wait. And in speaking of that, thank you so very much for sticking around and checking out the retooled version once again of the Heavy Drinks Podcast. Episode 42, The Clown Show has been retooled. And wouldn't you know it, we even discussed this between segments. We're retooling the show again for next week as well.
A little bit. Not as much.
A little bit, not as much of a change, but there's some things that we want to change. But maybe you'll agree with those changes and even write a comment saying you should do this, and we already have that in mind.
Yes.
But anyways, thank you for sticking around. Listen to the outro to check out where you can check out Heavy Debriefings in all its forms. And until next week, for the Metal Faerie, this is Josh Runquist for the Heavy Debriefings Podcast saying, embrace the skullet.
This has been the Heavy Debriefings Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Make sure to follow Heavy Debriefings on all your favorite social media sites: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Threads. And of course, heavydebriefings.weebly.com for all of your Heavy Debriefings needs.
Also check out the Metal Faerie at facebook.com at the Metal Faerie.
Until next time.